Thank you, Jenna and Sarah. Please pray with me. Holy One, we offer you this time this morning for the healing of our families, our city, our communities, and our world. Amen. So, I have a good word that I want to share with you. But as I couldn't help but pay attention to the news this week, I have the unfortunate, frustrating requirement, I guess, that I spend just a minute at the start of our service and make some comments about the words spoken by our United States Attorney General, Jeff Sessions. And I want to notice that this is what happens when people have more power than you do. They get to capture the attention of the country, and then they get to determine what you say. So that I have to take this time because I have less power. But I want to say this. If you heard Jeff Sessions mention the Bible and Romans 13 as justification for separating children from their families, then I want you to know that, of course, the Bible has been used to justify all manner of things. That same passage was used by pro-slavery advocates. And that's why we don't use the Bible that way. It's called proof texting, lifting out portions that you want. And it may have made sense in the time it was written for that group of persecuted Christians to do what Romans 13 says, which is obey the laws. It lands for me in our context a lot like an African-American parent, a father telling his son, look, if they pull you over, just do what they say. As a minister of the gospel of Jesus Christ, I urge you to disobey all laws that are unjust and immoral, and I encourage you to practice civil disobedience. And that's the pulpit in which I stand, and that's the message of this church and of myself as a minister of the church. So, no more for Romans 13. Thank you. All right, so Psalm 139. We have been in this series on sacred place, and we have been looking at how we ground our faith in the land on which we live, in the place we find ourselves. And this morning, I'm inviting us to think of that place by imagining ourselves looking at ourselves. So, here's what I have to offer you. I invite you to come into that intimate place of Psalm 139 and just imagine yourself in front of a full-length mirror without any clothes. And then hear the psalmist say, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works, God, and that my soul knows very well. Fearfully, that word, it means reverently. It means awe. And I think if you're like me, naked in front of a full-length mirror, you don't really feel awe necessarily, unless it's like awe. Awe. My personal goal is to stop apologizing for the amount of space I take up in the world. And I'm on that journey, and so I hope you'll join me. For some of us, we look in that mirror and we see evidence of violence. It is very painful. It is very painful to see scars, visible and invisible. And some of us look in the mirror and we think, this is not the body I need. This is not congruent with who I know myself to be. And so it's vulnerable in a profound way that we probably cannot share with anyone else. And yet the psalmist says, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. And I believe that this morning. I believe that we are made wonderful, and we are wonderful in the becoming. and in the growing and in the finding of congruency and in the healing of our scars. At the cellular level, at the place where our neurons are firing across the synapses and our sinews are over bones stretched. Deep there, we are wonderfully made, and there is a thread of God that is electric, that lives within us. We are becoming beauty, we are becoming strength, and we are becoming power. And so I wonder about what it's like to one day not apologize, to not be afraid for my body's safety. I wonder what it's like to be free. But I think this morning it's not just that the psalmist is saying that we're beautiful, although we are. The psalmist is also saying something really important for us about who God is and how God knows us. Because the psalmist is saying that the creator of everything, the power of everything, billions of years old, ancient cosmos, stardust, the source of stardust, all of that immensity is right there in our neurons, in our cells, firing, and delighted with us. Which means there's no closet that God is not in. There's no closet that God is not in. There is no secret that God does not know. And this can be a relief, or it can be terrifying, depending on who you think God is. Right? If God is punitive and judgmental, out with their ruler and their policy, if God is Jeff Sessions, then it's awful. But if God is the source of all knowing and all love, and God is in process too, God is also becoming strength, God is becoming beauty, God is becoming power, then maybe being known that intimately, that vulnerably, that God is right there in the mirror looking back at us, maybe that's okay. So here's my best story for you, and I'll keep it short, but here's my best story about the nearness of God and what it might mean to be known in this way. I went to Chamayo, New Mexico, a number of years ago on this pilgrimage. I was very skeptical, but I went. And I was staying at this little B&B, and I had gotten myself all set for the night, and I was just about to fall asleep, and I felt this really strong impulse, like, you need to get out and go. Like, drive, like, get in the car and go. So, since it was a spiritual journey, I listened to that. I got dressed, I got my keys, I got my car. I'm like, where am I going? Just drive. Okay, I'm driving. It's getting late. I'm driving. Where am I going? I don't know. I'm driving till I hear stop. So I drive, and I drive, and I drive, and finally I hear stop, and I stop. And I realize after I pull, I'm like, well, I want a wide shoulder, get out there, that I'm at the top of the mesa. And it is completely dark. I get out of the car, and I'm trying to get my bearings, and I can see Albuquerque way off in the distance, this kind of little sprawl of lights. It's completely dark. I can hear like little desert things, creatures. There's nobody around. There's no lights. There's gravel under my feet. And then I look up. And oh my God, the stars. Stars upon stars upon stars upon, they just like go and go and go and go and go, and it is so loud. It's hard to explain this. It is so loud that I'm like this. I like crouch, like it's too much. It's too big, it's too dark, there are too many stars. And as I've got my head down, like this, the stars come for me. Like I'm like this, my eyes are still open, but literally, I don't make this stuff up. It's like, woo, until they're right there. Oh my Lord. Oh my Lord. And I felt like I was one of those stars, like they're in me. And actually, maybe that's true. Maybe that is what that means. That's how close God is. All those stars, all the way here. No separation, absolute connection and intimacy. I read this book. Macrina Wiederkehr is a Catholic sister, and she says in her book that we're terrified of being under God's eye because to be close to God is to be made more like God. And we become reminded of our divinity, and that freaks us out. Like mortality, okay, but divinity, the fact that we're made of God fire and God electricity. In the Baptist tradition of my childhood, we call it sanctification. You guys know sanctification? Am I the only one? I got one nod. Jim's nodding in the back. Sanctification is the process of letting go of all the things that keep you from God. All the things that are ego and selfishness and how do I look and is it okay and does that person like me and money and power and all of it. Sanctification means becoming more God and less all of that clutter and noise. And I think it's in that process and becoming like God that it suddenly strikes me that not only is it that I am holy, but everyone around me is too, every single human being, and animal and plant as well. So on the cover of your bulletin, what I want to take my offering for you this morning is this quote by this evangelical woman who I really love. And she says, Ann Voskamp, you may or may not, that's me, I added the may not because it's First Congregational. She doesn't say that. You may believe in God, but never forget, it's God who believes in you. Every morning that the sun rises and you get to rise, that's God saying they believe in you. That God believes in the story they're writing through you. God believes in you as a gift the world needs. And so I think the sacred place this morning is you. You're the Hagia Sophia. You are Mecca. You're the Wailing Wall. You're the temple. That's you. And everyone else is too. And we are in a world full of holiness. In a world full of holiness. So I'm gonna close with a spiritual practice that's very short. That's an invitation for us today. And it's got two parts. The first part is for you. So if you want, you can close your eyes. Definitely take a deep breath. Just notice your body. And just focus on your breath, and you're breathing in, and you're breathing out. And notice kind of your center, your still point. That central place where all is well in your spirit. And in that place of stillness, just notice how it feels when you hear me say, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. You are beloved as you are and as you are becoming. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. Just hold that for one moment. That's true. That is true. And now, second part, open your eyes if you close them. The second part is for us as a community, because I would like to take the privilege of the pulpit to formally declare that our policy in this church is do ask and do tell. Do ask for pronouns And do tell your coming out stories, your Me Too stories. Tell them to me, tell them to each other, so that we might all inhabit our holy ground, our sacredness. So I'm going to invite you to turn to a neighbor. So you're going to need a neighbor. So if you don't have a neighbor, let's do that part first. Find a neighbor. So you'll have to get up and move if you don't have a neighbor, but you need somebody to sit next to. Go find, you're not talking, you're just putting your body near a neighbor. Near a neighbor. Everyone have a neighbor? Okay, you can talk after. Okay, this is what you're gonna say to each other. You're gonna say it to each other until you know that everybody has had a chance to hear this. So I can't really script it, you just need to do it. But in fact, here, repeat it after me so that you've got it, okay? Here's what you're gonna say to each other. Your life is a gift that the world needs. Your life is a gift that the world needs. Go. All right, your life is a gift the world needs. So now if you go and you march, you can say that to strangers too. You don't need to say where you got it. You can just say, hey, I got this idea. Your life is a gift that the world needs. Let's keep saying it to each other. Beloved, the world is full of violence and pain, but we are stardust. We are made of light. And by the way, I should say, all the Kate Spades and the Anthony Bourdains, your life is a gift the world needs, right? So it's not just a luxury, it's a necessity. It's a necessity that we say that to one another. So do that today. Don't neglect it. Don't neglect it. Beloved, the world is full of violence and pain, but we are stardust, we are made of light, and God believes in us, the sum of our light, together as a community. So may we go forth and shine today in all of our fabulous brilliance, out of all of the beauty and the power and the strength that we already are. Amen.